What is Alex Kingston? Because he's certainly not a real wrestler.
He's the innovator of radness.
Oh, the innovator of radness.
Yeah.
I think before he gets a title shot, what Alex Kingston needs, mate, you need a thesaurus. Because when you say innovator, you mean thief. And when you say radness, you mean Shane Haste's moveset.
Greeting history buffs and welcome to episode 3 of History Lessons with a History Maker. I am your host, the real wrestler Gavin McGavin, and today we are looking at Alex Kingston versus Gavin McGavin for the EPW Coastal Championship. Here with the announcements, we have Jones Good. Interesting story, Jones Good is actually a friend of mine from way back at my first ever job at the Mandurah Greyhounds. I first met Jones when he was a 15-year-old having his first job. We used to speak about wrestling for 5 hours a night, our entire shift. For about 4 years, twice a week, we would talk about wrestling 5 hours a night, and I don't think we ever had the same conversation twice. He's one of the biggest wrestling fans you'll ever know, and probably one of the biggest announcers you'll ever see, standing at about 6'4". As you can see, I'm receiving my usual warm welcome from the EPW fans. This is the first time I've been back in front of them since winning that title at Reawakening 15. Since then, I had journeyed over to New South Wales, as you saw in last week's episode, defending the title successfully against Jack Bonza, Concrete Davidson, and even Caveman Ugg. This match was my first defense on home soil, and it was actually the very first match for EPW in 2017. Hence the title of this week's episode, Jerking the Curtain. Not only jerking the curtain on this show, but on EPW's entire year, which I took as the challenge to set the tone for the entire year. Speaking of setting the tone, at the very top of this week's episode, you saw just a snippet of the promo, which I've referenced this week on all of my social media platforms. As I mentioned there, it actually got me a little bit of heat backstage. Some people feel that maybe I went a little bit too far with some of my comments about Alex Kingston. This is, of course, the first ever singles meeting between myself and Alex Kingston. We had previously done battle in a triple threat way back in 2009 in my debut year for the EPW Rising Star Cup, which Alex Kingston would go on to win. And then again in episode 1 in that Battle Royale at Reawakening 15, where I defeated Alex Kingston very last of all to become the Coastal Champion in the first place. That's how this match took place. EPW Matchmakers feeling that with Alex Kingston coming second in that Battle Royale, that put him first in line for a shot at the title. You can see here a bit of chain wrestling going back and forth between myself and Alex Kingston. He is known as the high flyer, but he's also very technically sound on the mat, something he doesn't get to show too often. I've talked previously about what the Coastal title meant to me and to the others in the division, and we really wanted it to be the wrestler's wrestling title. Much like the Intercontinental title was in the early and mid-90s of WWE, this title was to showcase the real wrestling. That's why I think I was such a good fit for this division and why I was so determined to become the first champion, because I felt that I could champion that style better than anyone else. It's interesting looking back here at the old building, Cyril Jackson Rec Center, that was home for many, many years to EPW. Oh, Alex Kingston with a kip up there. As I said, a very agile and technically proficient wrestler. Oh, and a deep arm drag as well. Yeah, Cyril Jackson, EPW's home for a very long time. When we made the move, a lot of us were skeptical. It had been our safe, tried and true home for quite some time, and we were wondering whether or not the crowd would actually follow us out to Claremont, to our new showgrounds. But after one show, look at that, too smart, got that dropkick scouted. He hit me in the face with that at Reawakening. I didn't want that to happen again, and slammed the headlock back straight on. As I said, we were curious to see what would happen moving to Claremont. Sorry, just got to interrupt you again. A great little reversal there. I actually learnt from Jack Bonza. Oh! Looks like he got me with the dropkick after all. Making the move from Cyril Jackson Rec Center after all those years, to Gate 1 Theatre at the Claremont Showgrounds was a big risk for EPW, financially and in many other ways. Speaking of a big risk, looks like Alex Kingston's going to take one here. And classic Alex Kingston diving onto a poor fellow like me. Yeah, we were curious to see what would happen. We knew that the venue was definitely better in terms of its production values. It was better for the fans in terms of the view they got of the show as well. Here at Cyril Jackson, every single seat was at floor level. So once you got 5 or 6 rows back, your view was obscured. Whereas at Gate 1 Theatre, we've got the tiered seating there, so there's not a bad seat in the house. Also, the little things that you don't think about as being a wrestling fan. Cyril Jackson has got an extremely high roof, which means that even when the fans are absolutely chomping at the bit and clapping and cheering and loving everything they're saying, the noise dissipates really quickly. Whereas at Gate 1 Theatre now, that room just feels like a boiling pot of emotion. Oh! Well, he does call himself the innovator of radness. As I said, at Gate 1 Theatre, it's this really intimate venue where you get 400 people in there and it is absolutely jam-packed and there is so much noise and so much passion. Oh, had him blocked here. Here's that move that, oh! Anyone who watched episode 2 would have heard me say that that was the first time I ever used it. Worked really well. So I went back and used it again in this match against Alex Kingston. Yes, indeed, that top rope hung DDT swayed the momentum back in my favour. And I looked at this match as a way to sway the momentum in the locker room in my favour. If I could go out there on the very first event of the year, in the very first match, and confidently and expertly defeat Alex Kingston, a former EPW champion, I would send a strong message to the boys in the back as well as those in charge that Gavin McGavin was legit. Gavin McGavin was a force to be reckoned with in the singles division. I'd only been back in the singles division for a matter of months. I think it was August or September previous to this, 4 or 5 months earlier, that I had split from Mike Massive in the tag team division where I had spent the last 4 years. This was a real chance for me to show that I was going to be a real big player in the singles division in EPW. Pretty back and forth contest so far here between myself and Alex Kingston. That of course comes down to the fact that we're pretty even in terms of our size and our strength, and I actually credit Alex Kingston as one of the reasons that I realised that professional wrestling was something that I could actually do. I'd been a wrestling fan my entire life. I had my amateur background, of course, but I believe that perhaps I was a bit too small to be a professional wrestler. It wasn't until I watched Alex Kingston from the crowd, actually at the Claremont Showgrounds, Gate 1, at the first ever Monday Night Wrestling TV taping. I saw Alex Kingston come out through the curtain, and at that stage he wasn't that much bigger than I was. And I thought, if this guy can do it, then I can too. Funny little story behind what just happened there. I just hit a leg drop and someone in the crowd who thinks he's a bit clever tried to call out that not even Hogan could get a leg drop over. To which I responded that it had actually won him numerous world titles. I would have thought by now that EPW fans might have realised that Gavin McGavin's not the guy you try and talk smack to during a match, because I can multitask. I can kick my opponent's ass and also talk shit to you at the same time. Here is a good opportunity to talk to you about a phrase that you hear quite often in wrestling, and that is scouting your opponent. And right on cue, Alex Kingston blocks my signature kip in German. He had me scouted, which means that he had studied match footage of me, or he just looked back at the times we had wrestled and when I had hit that move on him. He knew the place that I set it up from, so he was expecting it to come, so he had a counter ready for it. He didn't have a counter for the ankle lock, and that's why I've got him in quite a lot of bother right now. Good wrestlers study tape. They study their opponent. They learn from the previous times they've wrestled, or they learn from watching them wrestle someone else. That's what it means to scout your opponent. To find out what they do, when they do it, and where they do it from, and have a plan in your head. So if they try it on you, you can make sure that that does not happen. Another common thing you'll hear about in wrestling is people trying to dictate the pace of a match. You can see any time that I get back in control here, I slow the pace right down. Because anyone who knows Alex Kingston and has watched him wrestle for more than 5 minutes knows that when the pace is up, when things are going fast, Alex Kingston has the advantage. It is for that reason that right here I am trying my very best, perhaps outside the rules, to take the wind out of Alex Kingston, because if you can't breathe, you can't run. And if he can't run, I have a much better chance of winning this match. If I drag him into my match style, if I keep him grounded, I'm going to have an advantage over Alex Kingston. See the referee here just checking the hand of Alex Kingston if it drops. Nope, I haven't quite done enough to put this guy away. And like I said, he's a former EPW champion. Alex Kingston is legit. That's why it was such a big challenge for me, one that I wanted to overcome. Here we go, going for that sleeper hold, which left me open for the back suplex. Oh, floated over, didn't quite land flat on my feet. Boom! Big boot to the face, Alex Kingston. How do you like me now? Oh! He liked to turn me inside out with an absolute huge lariat. Those of you just tuning in and watching for the first time ever, perhaps this is the first wrestling you've ever seen. What the referee is doing right now here is he is administering a 10 count. If neither of us can return to our feet by that 10 count, the match would be over. But it's going to take a bit more than that to take out Alex Kingston and yours truly. Well, here we go. This is what I talked about. Once Alex Kingston gets up ahead of steam, once he starts moving fast, that's when I'm in all sorts of trouble. Oh, that one hurt the back. Straight into the pin. You want to make sure that you wrestle a match on your terms to give yourself the best chance. And right now, I am playing right into Alex Kingston's game. He is wrestling at the pace that he wants. He's getting to throw his kicks freely and openly. Oh, one to the breadbasket, one to the head. But I'd seen this combo before. I was ready and delivered a nasty German, bridging up on my head too. And oh, you can see I was quite surprised that Alex Kingston managed to kick out of that one. By this stage, I thought I'd done enough to put him away, but that was not the case. Wasting my time there arguing with the ref whether or not it was 3. And a bit of time jaw jacking with the crowd as well. I'm sure this isn't going to go badly for me. Nice big European uppercut, which I absolutely love. Oh! That chop thundered throughout Cyril Jackson Rec Center. Don't worry about how high the roof is. The noise for that one carried just fine. Oh, knee to the top of my forehead. Again, had this one scouted. Oh, switch the arm, dump me right on the back of my head. I'm in a spot of bother here, and I know it because Alex Kingston is getting a run on. Sunset bomb there, nearly taking me out. Right now, I just want to make sure that I can survive this match. The last thing I want to do is lose it. Not on my first defense, because as I said, I'd already defended it 3 times over East. But this was my first defense in front of EPW, in front of the home promotion, where the title is from. I wanted to make sure that the very first defense set the tone for the sort of champion I was going to be. I wanted to make sure that they knew that Gavin McGavin was not going to be giving this title up without a fight. It was also important to me that I wasn't seen as a fluke, a one and done in the Coastal Division. I'd won it in a Rumble, but I hadn't defended it in an actual singles match yet, and it was really important to me that I did that. Well, you can see there, making the mistake of going up top, which is usually Alex Kingston's territory. Now he's got me set up for that double stomp, but again, oh, too smart. I had scouted Kingston. I knew that he loved to utilize that move. I'd even seen him do it off the top of a cage. So when he set up for it, I was ready to deliver a huge superplex. Now the superplex is a double-edged sword. Yes, it definitely takes a lot out of your opponent. But as you can see, as I clutch the back of my own head, it rocks you pretty bad as well. It's one of those risk versus reward things that you do late in a match if you think it's going to pay off, and unfortunately it didn't. You can see my head in my hands here. I'm just trying to think, what do I have to do to put Alex Kingston away? I'd beaten him before in a Rumble by making him fall to the outside, but I'd never actually pinned or submitted him, so I didn't know firsthand what it was going to take to put him away. So why was this match significant in the history of the EPW Coastal Championship? Because this was the first time the fans got to see what the Coastal Division was. And they can see two young athletic wrestlers in their prime going hell for leather, pulling out all the stops to deliver an exciting, competitive matchup. That's what the Coastal Championship was going to be about. It was going to be fast-paced, it was going to be exciting, and it was going to be pure wrestling. 2 feet right in the back of my skull. That one knocked me nearly unconscious. That absolutely sucked, I will tell you 100% for free. And you can see right now I'm exactly where Alex Kingston wants me. He's won many matches with a frog splash and with a top rope elbow. And it's just a matter of time before he gets himself in position and finishes off Gavin McGavin and brings my title run to a very abrupt end, which I was not going to let happen. And I was going to make sure it didn't happen at absolutely any cost. Boom. Look, I'm not proud of it, but it got the job done. Yeah, I just lost my first defense, but I lost it by disqualification, which means, and still your EPW Coastal Champion, the real wrestler, Gavin McGavin. I may not have won the battle on this occasion, but I was continuing to win the war and maintain my grip on the EPW Coastal Championship, and that was what was most important to me. I'd gone in there and gone toe-to-toe with a former EPW champion and held my own, and now I was still holding the EPW Championship and sent a message. And there's another message. Anyone who wants to come for my title can expect anything and everything to be done to maintain it. Now, referee, you can raise my hand. Don't touch me. Please do not touch me, referee. Celebrating with that absolutely gorgeous title made it all worth it. The fans giving me an absolute hard time about it, but all that mattered to me was keeping that title and keeping it around my waist. As a matter of fact, I was going to get the referee to put it around my waist. Funny story is that it doesn't actually fit. The title is too big for me. You can see I'm standing with a nice wide stance here, so that way it doesn't slide down my hips. Who's this? This attack from Scotty Ryan would lead to perhaps one of the greatest feuds in EPW in the last 10 years. Starting next week with episode 4, we will start to look at the amazing trilogy that was Gavin McGavin versus Scotty Ryan. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. And if you want to see the rest of that promo, click on the link right there.